my darlings, welcome back to another video. Today I'm continuing the BillFord fanfic reading on Wattpad. It is called A Touching Story by Pastel_Writes101. And today we'll be starting with chapter 2, or 3 if you count the prologue as one chapter. This feels unnatural. As always, the link to the story is in the description below if you'd like to read along with me. So without further ado, let's get started. Ford had forgotten entirely last night when he woke up and saw Bill sleeping, facing away from him. He jumped up and stared at the unmoving entity. He sighed and rubbed his eyes, putting on his glasses. He felt his heart racing, but not from fear. It was that feeling again, that heartwarming yet very high anxiety that sat in his stomach. Ford watched Bill shift, and he laid back down, facing away, trying to act like he was sleeping. Maybe Bill wouldn't rip his face off and get up and go to the chalkboard. But the significant shift in the bed made Ford realize that Bill was now turned toward him, and there was a 70% chance he was awake. Now, all he could do was lay there and wait for something to happen. Bill slowly sat up and groaned. He got up and stretched his arms while walking around the bed, shooting quick glances at Ford, and something told him that his little puppet was awake. The thing that gave it away was his breathing patterns. But he decided to feed into it. He sat down and rested a hand on Stanford's shoulder. "Wake up, Ford." He waited for a reply, and Stanford let out a quick groan, trying his best to act like he had just woken up, but he was terrible at it. What? Bill. He rubbed his eyes. "When did you put your glasses on?" Bill slowly smirked and watched the pink tint appear on Ford's cheeks. "I don't know what you're talking about." "I'm gonna make us some coffee. Let's get to work." Bill got up and hummed a familiar tune as he made his way to the kitchen. Ford got up and walked to the dinner table. He felt so embarrassed. Why did he think he could trick someone like Bill into believing they didn't maybe hold each other? And that Ford maybe wanted it to happen. Wait, what? Shut up. No, this is not how this is gonna go. Ford shook his head in frustration, trying to get a hold of himself. Maybe Bill was just messing with him and with his head, trying to get a reaction out of him. Bill walked over and poured coffee into his mug. "Here you are, Sixer." He set it down and walked back to the kitchen, setting the coffee pot down. "Bill, can we, He felt so sweaty. He was nervous beyond belief. "Talk about last night? I'm sorry for dragging you into my room and..." "Oh, so you do remember what happened then?" Bill started to laugh lightly. "It's fine, Sixer. Let's focus on the portal. And besides, your room is warmer than the one I'm staying in, so I might steal your bed again tonight." Ford's cheeks turned pink, and he slowly looked over at the demon. "Does that mean I have to take your room?" No. We can use the same bed. I don't care." "I do need you to grab my stuff and move it to your room, please. I'll go start on the portal." He walked away with his own coffee and went into the basement. Ford quickly stood up and made his way to the guest bedroom. He peeked inside and saw a suitcase, a tea set sitting on the dresser, and a halfway done game of chess sitting on the table. He forgot that since Bill was in a human form, he needed to shower and change his clothes to appear normal to other people. He picked up the suitcase and opened it. Just a peek couldn't hurt. He picked up a bottle of wine, and he assumed that wine was Bill's favorite alcoholic drink, though he'd never seen the demon drink it. He looked through the clothes, then closed the suitcase, and sat down looking at himself in the mirror on top of the wardrobe. It is cold in here. There's no other reason why he would want to be in my room. He got up and grabbed the suitcase, taking it into his room and setting it down on the bed for Bill after they were done with the portal. Stanford quickly made his way into the basement and saw Bill working on the controls for the portal. He had managed to light up half of it. "Holy shit, Bill! This is amazing!" pulled out his journal and got to drawing out the blueprints. "Thank you, Ford. Here are the calculations and codes I used." He pushed over a fefew pieces of paper filled with neat writing and every code needed to get the portal on for the left side. "I'm going to show you what I did so you can recreate it when I'm not here." Bill sat next to him with a pencil and for an hour explained every step he took to finish the side. "Listen, Ford. Once your part of the deal is done, then it'll be my turn. This portal can help you solve anything you want to know." Bill looked at the man, who was now kneeled down, covered in dust and graphite. "You cannot back out of the deal." "Why would I? You're my muse. I trust you, Bill." He smiled and got up, wiping his hands on his jeans. "Come, let's get some lunch." Chapter 3. Lovely Lunch. "Bill, I had no clue you enjoyed sushi. You must tell me more about yourself," Ford said happily, watching the patter of sushi rolls be set in front of them. Bill nodded and smiled. "Well, I guess I'm full of surprises. What do you like to eat, Ford?" "I enjoy pasta. I like the restaurants in Gravity Falls, but getting sushi is such a nice treat." He looked up at Bill and noticed he was watching him intently with a big smile. "I'm glad we like the same foods. You should show me around town. Take me out to some of the establishments you enjoy since I've never had a human form before." And that actually got Ford thinking about where he would show Bill. Maybe he could take him on a monster hunt or take him to the spaceship hidden in the ground. "Ford, you're drifting again." Bill took a bite of sushi. "You've got to get a better control of your mind, Ford. You drift so often now." "Right, sorry. I was just thinking about where I could take you." Ford reached for a napkin, and so did Bill. Their hands met, and Ford pulled away. "Sorry, you go ahead first," he said, embarrassed. "You should have paid more attention. Bill probably thinks he's an idiot now." "That's all right, Ford." He handed him the napkin and grabbed one for himself. "Your hand is so cold, Bill. Is it always like that?" "Yes, but it's worse today." "Why, do you think I wear gloves?" He smiled and shared a small giggle with Stanford. "That's the only thing that humans will notice. I don't heat up. I can't." "That's so odd. Is it because you're a demon?" Stanford asked, reaching out and grabbing Bill's hand, inspecting it. He had never really seen his hands without gloves on up this close. "Well, it could be. I also can't regulate my temperature like humans do, although it helps greatly when it's hot outside and everyone else is practically melting to the ground." Ford smiled. "Do you mind if I run a few tests? For research in the journal?" You know what, sure. I don't see why not, as long as it doesn't cut into our time with the project." Stanford sat back, letting go of his hand. They got up and paid the waitress, then left the building. What waitress, you may ask? I have no idea. And once again, that night, they shared a bed. But Ford seemed now even more restless. Not because Bill was keeping him awake, but because his brain wouldn't slow down. He assumed the reason was that they got a lot of work to do tomorrow. His thoughts were interrupted by a voice. "Ford, you're being too loud. I can hear what you're thinking." Bill sat up and rubbed his eyes. "Bill, I meant to ask. Not to make you uncomfortable, but while you're in that form, do you need to use the bathroom? And do you even have the parts to do that with? Do you have to eat and drink regularly? Or can you just eat whatever and whenever you want?" Yes, and yes, he snickered. "Why do you ask?" "I just never really seen something like you. No one has." Ford rubbed the back of his neck. "Do you want to see the parts?" He smirked and turned toward him. "To study, I assume?" Chapter 4. The Study. Ford took Bill up on his offer to study his physical form. It would be awkward, of course, but at the end of the day, his research mattered. and he was curious, to say the least. Bill walked out in one of Ford's old robes and sat on the chair in front of his desk. "You gonna draw me like one of your French girls?" Titanic reference. Love it. Bill laughed softly. "We can always stop if you feel uncomfortable." "Oh, Sixer, I'll turn that around right back at you. I wouldn't want to scare you away." Bill smirked and dropped the robe while facing away from him. This form that he had tattoos and markings in different languages on his back. These marks were on his shoulders and down to his lower back as well. Ford got straight to work sketching out on his pad what he looked like. Inevitably, he got to the part where he was the most embarrassed by. Sketching out his lower half. To be honest, Bill didn't look bad in the slightest. It was the opposite. Ford tried to keep his mind blanked out because he wasn't sure if Bill could hear the thoughts he was having. But he caved and let his mind wander as he sketched, wondering what the front would look like. Ford couldn't see it, but Bill's smirk became wider. He heard it all right, but he wasn't going to spoil Ford's fun. This was very entertaining to him. "Getting all the good angles there, Sixer?" he teased. "I hope to see the sketch once you're done." Bill swayed his hips side to side, then remained still. "What? Yes, of course. Once I'm done, you can see it." He caught just a glimpse while Bill's legs were moving, and he squeezed his pencil tightly. "I'm just about done with your back. You can turn around in a few moments." Ford looked back up at Bill, then he put the pad of paper up. "Perfect. Okay, now you can turn around." He tried, but Bill noticed the nervousness tinge in his voice. "All right, Sixer, how do you want me to sit?" Bill stayed facing away, just to add to the tension that was building. "You could stand up just like you were facing away, and then sit down on that stool facing me, letting your legs relax so I can get you in your most comfortable position." "My most comfortable position? Interesting take." Bill turned around just as Ford was about to respond. "I didn't mean like, holy shit, I'm sorry, I didn't mean, to swear, wow." Ford's face went red, and he hid his face with the pad of paper. "Now, Fordsy, you know well that you have to look at me to sketch me. Don't be shy." Ford reluctantly put down his pad and looked Bill up and down. "You weren't kidding. You do have the parts." "We can always stop," Bill started. No, I'm fine. Let's just get these two sketches done." Ford sketched the picture as fast as he could, but when it was time for Bill to sit down, he sat with his legs spread halfway open. He had an amazing posture and a big smile on his face. "How's this?" "Perfect," Ford replied quickly and stared down at his sketching pad. Why was this demon so attractive to him? Was it for some sort of mind control, or was it just him? Could it possibly be that he just liked the way Bill looked? That he was hot? Ford didn't realize where he had zoned out, because Bill cleared his throat and Ford snapped out of thought. "My eyes are up here, Ford." Bill crossed his arms jokingly. "But it looks more like my crotch has more of your attention than my voice. Is the sketch done?" "I'm so sorry, Bill. Yes, it's done. Here, take a look. Let me know if you want me to change anything," he said shyly and averted his gaze. You did incredibly well. I'm surprised you never majored in art. It's perfection. Almost as good as the real thing, right?" "It could never do justice to how you look, Bill." Ford couldn't help himself because he was right. No picture would do justice to his form. "I'm glad you agree. So what do you think of my human form?" "It's beautiful. No one could tell you aren't one of them. The only thing is setting you apart is your face, which is significantly better than anyone else's in town." I'm surprised you don't flaunt like Stanley does. Now, Ford, Stanley brags because he's not you. You may be twins, but you got the looks and smarts. You just don't give yourself enough credit. Bill walked over and leaned onto the desk. I love the sketch. Bill was now inches away from Ford's face. He was so confident, and Ford wished he had that at this moment, because he was practically shaking in anticipation. What do your tattoos mean? Ford asked to break the silence. Some of them are in language that have been banished out of existence. Others are from my old world, and the symbols are all about me. They all have meaning. I'd be glad to share some of them tomorrow. Bill walked over and grabbed the robe. Wait, Bill, do you mind if I see them closer? Maybe touch them? Interesting request, Sixer. He made his way back over and Ford stood up. He traced letters and symbols he couldn't understand, but knew held great meaning if someone like Bill would have them on his body. I can feel them. They have a sort of texture. Is that on purpose? Ford asked, intrigued, forgetting how close he was to Bill now. Yes. I did it because I think skin on its own is boring. I like the curves and imperfections of others. They have more character than those dolls walking around. Bill had been talking about those who have gotten plastic surgery, those who pretend to be perfect. He didn't know that Bill hated those humans. Oh, so is that what sets me apart? Ford asked. Yes, but it's your smarts too. You've got something else. That's why you are the genius that will work with me. It's why I picked you. You have more character than anyone else. Bill said, trying not to sound too eager, but Ford could tell he meant every word. Bill grabbed his hand and examined it. Never change this, Sixer. You can be shunned and isolated, but no one will ever have what you have now. You don't talk much about where you came from, Bill. Would you like to? I see something. It looks like you're missing something. Bill pulled Ford so close their lips almost touched. He was pressed up against his body, and it felt like for a moment that the whole world would wash away, and it would just feel right. Then Bill let go. Sorry, Ford, but I won't talk about it. Not for a long while. But hey, at least you got your new entry on the journal tomorrow. Bill walked away, after letting go, and grabbed the robe. Did I make you uncomfortable? Because if I did, I'm so sorry. Bill walked towards him. No, you didn't. I'm glad you took care to ask and wanted to know. All you need to know is that it was destroyed. I'm not mad, Ford. Bill smiled and turned towards him. You were looking at a good long while at my legs. Did it take you a while to copy them down? He grabbed the pad of paper. You made my ass look great. He laughed and sat on the desk. He didn't even bother closing the robe. Looks like you had some trouble making my dick, though. You seemed distracted. He looked up at him, and he held the pad up while Ford tried to grab it. I struggle with anatomy. A blatant lie, Fordsy. A lie that'll get you in some hot water. You don't struggle at it. You don't struggle at all. You just liked looking at it, didn't you? He teased and laughed, while Ford tried repeatedly to jump up and grab it. Come on, Bill. Give it back, please. Ford tried to compose himself, but it was impossible at this point. That is where I'm going to leave off this video. Thank you so much for watching. In the next video, I believe I'll finish it. I read about 3 or 4 chapters today, and I have only 3 or 4 left, so the next video will be the last one. I'm sorry if this was a tease. I was expecting this chapter to be a little more, like, you know what I'm saying? But I think this chapter was great build-up, if that is what's happening. You know, I don't want to assume, I don't want to get anyone's hopes up. But yes. And until then, don't forget to love yourselves and drink water because I love you. Bye, darlings.